So I guarantee if you guys watch to the end of this video, you're going to learn to avoid these mistakes I made when I was first optimizing my looks and health. As you guys can see, I was super ugly, and now I don't look half bad, and I also grew a lot taller through some things that I'll cover in this video. So the first thing is avoid putting trust in faulty methods. And all this really means is don't depend on scams or shills to actually make a big change in your looks, okay? So things like thumb pulling, mewing, gua sha, posture, or a haircut. Now these things can be helpful, things like a haircut, even though he kind of looks better here than here. You know, maybe gua sha, you get some lymphatic drainage a little bit. You know, posture, it's definitely an important thing you want to do. Mewing is just proper tongue posture. Thumb pulling, again, I don't see any evidence for, specifically because it's like, let's say your maxilla moves forward. Is the idea that the bone of your mandible is going to like separate and grow forward in perfect alignment? You know, it's just so many logistical issues with thumb pulling. No evidence of it actually working. All the case studies that apparently prove it don't actually prove it. You know, the list goes on. It's not something that's actually going to transform your looks, if that makes sense. You know, it's just not, okay? You can do it if you want. I think it's a large cope, and I think all the evidence suggests it's a large cope. And my point would be simply have realistic expectations about what you're doing and the results you're going to achieve. If you are complacent because you think mewing is going to ascend your looks, guess what? In 2 years of mewing, you're going to look exactly the same. Now you've just wasted 2 years of your life. You could have been actually doing more effective things. And I think you guys get my point. So have realistic expectations and don't put trust in this stuff to transform your looks. Next, I'm going to just give you guys the ideal diet so you don't have to waste time listening to lies and propaganda and not actually understanding what you should be eating. So you don't want to eat a plant-based diet, okay? These are basically toxins in your body, particularly because of the oxalates, okay? And I will leave a references tab of studies in the description. We know with things like spinach, for example, that 75% of the oxalates, 75% of the calcium in spinach gets bound to oxalates, which again, most kidney stones are calcium oxalate stones. So these things are just kidney stone fuel. And again, for example, Liam Hemsworth was put in the hospital after just 2 weeks of drinking a daily green smoothie that his vegan nutritionist recommended, okay? These things are actually dangerous. They can literally put you in the hospital, okay? Again, plants are missing these 15 micronutrients, and credit to Godis for being the first person to popularize this term, but it's true. They're missing the fat-soluble vitamins, some amino acid precursors, things like taurine and osmolite, heme iron, bioavailable iron, cholesterol, the precursor to your hormones, conjugated linoleic acid, okay? Plants don't have these nutrients. They're incomplete nutrition. Again, plants shouldn't be your main source of food unless you have this digestive system, okay? Unless you can purposefully ferment fiber into saturated animal fats and protein, then you shouldn't be eating plants as your main fuel source, okay? For example, cows eat grass and they get 70% of their quote-unquote calories from saturated animal fat, okay? So when cows eat grass, they ferment the grass and bacteria eat the grass, and then they excrete short-chain fatty acids, which are saturated animal fat. Then, at the end of the digestive system of a cow essentially puts all these bacteria into a gas chamber, and it extracts these dead bacteria as protein. So a cow eats grass, but after all this complex digestion, it's getting essentially 70% is fat and 30% is protein. So a cow is getting the same nutrition as when you eat a steak, because you are a monogastric animal as a human. You cannot, on large scale, ferment fiber the same way a cow does, okay? So a cow is in ketosis. A cow is on a ketogenic diet, eating fat and protein, okay? And that's what you should be too, except you're a monogastric animal. So you need to eat steak to be in a ketogenic state. And this leads me to my next point. You need to avoid these foods, especially in development, with anti-nutrients that bind to calcium in your gut. Things like phytic acid and oxalates. So for example, raspberries are really high in oxalates. Spinach is high in oxalates. Chocolate's high in oxalates. Again, oxalates bind to the calcium which you need for bone development in your gut. They render it useless. And again, we know as a fact around 90 to 80%, depending on the analysis, of kidney stones are calcium oxalate stones. So you need to avoid calcium, you do not need to avoid calcium. You need to avoid oxalates. Things like bread and rice, these have phytic acid, and phytic acid behaves the same way. It binds to the essential minerals in your gut and renders them useless. Again, things like bread and rice have no micronutrition. These are just sugar and fiber, glyphosate, okay? It's just garbage. You shouldn't be eating these foods. You should be eating real foods. These anti-nutrients quite literally biochemically reduce your height. Just like I said, these foods are literally stealing the minerals you need for your height. Avoid garbage marketed as muscle building or healthy products. I remember I used to be downing these things, and let me tell you, get your protein from actual meat. At least this is an animal product, so it is, has a complete amino acid profile and it's casein and whey proteins, but there's a bunch of artificial garbage they add to this stuff. Okay, it's going to give you acne in development. It's just not healthy. Eat this instead. Eat meat, butter, eggs. I should have put seafood here. Okay, again, in animal products, if you diversify a bit, you will get every single essential nutrient for humans. Okay, every single mineral, bioavailable protein and fat. Again, you need no carbs. Even the ADA says this. You do not need exogenous carbs for a single function. Okay, if you eat these foods, you'll get every single micro and macronutrient, every single amino acid, every single mineral that you need. If you diversify, red meat, seafood, eggs, butter, organs in small amounts, okay? Things like liver, brain, heart, okay? You have to be very careful with brain. You will have every single nutrient. You will be a powerhouse of a human. You will start feeling amazing. You will start looking better, okay? When you pair this with other lifestyle habits, you're going to basically, quote unquote, soft max to your max capability, okay? This leads me to my next point. Fix problems naturally and not with drugs. I fell for Accutane at the age of 14 and it was just a lousy temporary fix, okay? So every doctor and dermatologist lied to me. They said my diet had nothing to do with my acne. They told me to avoid the sun and they couldn't have been more wrong, okay? I would have known about these foods back when I was 13 and 14, when I was starting to eat an unnatural diet from school, school lunch and stuff. I would have been able to fix my skin naturally and fix my depression without destroying my liver with Accutane, okay? Accutane gave me permanent joint pain. It really destroyed my triglycerides. It raised them to the moon. It caused a lot of stress on my liver, okay? These are pharmaceutical poisons because they will literally cause a deformed child if a pregnant woman takes Accutane. These are literal poisons. When people say, oh, it's just a lot of vitamin A, bro. No, it's not just a lot of vitamin A. It is an artificial synthetic vitamin that is so powerful, can literally just destroy your body, okay? Never take it. Try an all meat diet if you have to for a few months and see what happens. You'll watch the magic happen. Your inflammatory disease, which is what acne is, will fade away. It's a mistake. I wish I would have known better. If you're a kid, you've been considering it, this is your sign. Try my diet, see how it goes. This leads me to another point. Don't try to lose weight with GLP-1s, so things like Ozempic, okay? And I have some studies and resources to prove exactly what I'm talking about. Typically, people lose a ton of lean body mass on Ozempic and other GLP-1s. So, while Ozempic is effective for weight loss, studies indicate it can also lead to a decrease in lean body mass, including muscle, alongside fat loss, with some studies showing an average loss of 15 pounds of lean muscle, okay? Of all the possible side effects from taking these medications, loss of muscle mass is one you may not have thought of. A recent study showed that those on Ozempic or any form of semaglutide lost on average 60% fat and 40% muscle mass, okay? Again, GLP-1s essentially are like a pseudo-bariatric surgery. They basically paralyze your stomach. And the way these work, the way it ends up, evidently, is you lose a ton of muscle mass. Because again, you want to lose not weight, but you want to lose fat, okay? You don't want to lose bone density. You don't want to lose muscle. You don't want to lose bone mass. You want to lose fat, okay? Here's the kicker. When people use these drugs, clearly they haven't changed their habits, right? So when they get off of the drugs, they continue their bad habits. They get left worse off than before because they regain the fat but not the muscle. So these people lose 60% fat, 40% muscle. Okay, they lose weight, much of which was muscle. Then they get off the drugs. They're still eating a terrible diet. They start gaining fat, but not muscle. So now their body composition is even worse than before. This is why some of these people end up in wheelchairs because they don't even have enough muscle mass to support all the obesity, all the fat tissue, okay? It's a huge mistake you need to avoid. Never take a GLP-1, go on a carnivorous ketogenic diet and lose it naturally. Again, yeah, just lose it with this, okay? You don't need a man-made modern drug to lose weight. You just need to eat naturally. And again, you don't want to lose weight, you want to lose fat. Next, I wish I would have known about raw milk. Now, I was actually blessed to have raw milk in development, but I wish I knew that it was helping me grow taller so that I would have kept doing it longer, okay? Again, here are all the compounds listed in raw milk that are very beneficial for your development, your bone development, height, etc. Calcium, phosphorus, I won't even read all these out. Basically, it has minerals, protein, fat, amino acids. It has growth factors like IGF-1, okay? It has probiotics too, omega-3s. Basically, raw milk nutritionally is a superfood and it's not to be underrated, okay? If you're in development, I would be leveraging this. Let's look at some data. And this was actually provided by a guy named Axios, and he's in my school community. I have a school community where I help people basically feel better and look better and basically just improve their lives in terms of dating, looks, health, etc. And he's in there and he provided this data. So 17 of the top 20 tallest countries are also in the top 20 for raw milk consumption. Again, this is just associative data, but it's very interesting when we look at the biochemical aspects of raw milk and we see how it might be actually influencing people's heights on a large scale. Okay, my last piece of advice is find a high return on investment procedure and commit to fixing it, okay? And this is something that will help you have a clear goal to work towards. And this is something that will ensure what you do will actually have a large return on investment, okay? So let's take a look at an example of what I'm talking about. This guy, for example, had a very deformed jaw, frankly, okay? Super high gonal angle. It has a weird contour. It's very recessed. So no amount of diet or thumb pulling or mewing was going to save this guy's jaw. So what he evidently did is he identified this huge problem, then he saved up and he got it fixed properly with surgery, and it changed his life, evidently, okay? So what I recommend is, again, if you need to, not even trying to self-promo, you can join my school community and I will teach you everything there is about maximizing and fixing your health and your looks, everything you can do naturally, especially with the health aspect, so that you start looking healthy, lean, clear skin, growing fuller hair, fuller eyelashes, fuller eyebrows, etc. All those sort of things. You want to be doing that, okay? And then on top of that, if you have a huge flaw, okay? For example, this guy had short face syndrome. If you have a huge flaw, if you can identify that, the biggest flaw, then find the best way to fix it, okay? If you focus on fixing that, it's going to actually give you results, okay? If this guy mewed for the rest of his life, he would still have short face syndrome. But he went and he got an amazing double jaw surgery with some downgrafting, okay? And it changed his life. So if you have a huge nose, if you have a recessed jaw, find your biggest issue, find out how to fix it. I'm not even trying to self-promo, but if this is one of your problems, again, you can join my school community and get access to, the surgical procedure for all of your problems. And you can always ask me one-on-one if you have questions about your face, what procedure I would recommend, okay? For example, with this woman, she had a negative canthal tilt, kind of neutral in that eye, and she got this fixed. It was a huge improvement to her looks, okay? So this is really important advice, because I think if you health max, you max out your lifestyle, all of these things, then you fix your biggest issue, you'll have a real ascension. You could go from, a 4 on my scale to like a 6, right? So, bottom 25% to top 20%, right? You could go from kind of ugly to like kind of good look, right? You could have huge ascension. So yeah, I hope all these tips really helped you out. Don't make any of these mistakes. No Accutane, no plant-based diet, no waiting for mewing to work, none of these toxic vegetables. Get on raw milk, and then think about a procedure you could do that would really help and change your life. So again, learn how you can transform your face, health, and dating life in less than 3 months using my proven system. Okay, here's my school community. Here's everything you get inside, access to all these courses to actually get healthier and look better. Okay. And here's some examples just to show you guys I kind of know what I'm talking about. Here's Devin's transformation, really huge transformation. Here's Kyan's transformation. I worked with him in development, so we actually shaped his bone mass genuinely. And then here's my transformation, pretty huge, especially this was mostly a health transformation. So if you want to stop wasting time on random advice and actually get results, join my private community. First link in the description. Just click this link right here, right under this video, and you'll be taken to a video where you can see exactly what you get in the community and kind of decide if it's right for you. I think you'll love it. It's going to help you look and feel better. So thank you guys so much for watching. Hope this video helped. I'll see you next time.